about this. I must.
Good evening, friends. Good evening, friends.
Good evening, friends. It is time for the Haunted Radio from space. My goodness, that's loud. Get that down there a little bit. I'm your old pal, Capt'n John. Did I remember to type that in? I did. Ooh. Whew, ahead of the game. As you know, I have been working in this play. We do matinees on Sundays, and I am always so exhausted by the time I get to the show, but I love doing this show. I love spending time with you. I love playing old time radio shows for you. And I also love hanging out with my friends. And let me introduce them tonight. Our co-hosts for the evening, as always, Chief Science Fiction Officer aboard Starbase 80, my good friend, Mr. Townsel. Mr. Townsel, thank you for being with us as always, sir.
Thank you as always for having me, Capt'n John.
And our chief engineer here on Starbase 80, the much loved and very intelligent. He always helps us figure out so many things. He's going to be put to the test tonight, Joe. And that is, our good friend Craig Lubin is with us as well. Thank you for being with us again, Craig. Craig is a little bit of a genius. IT man extraordinaire, but also knows his science, loves science. Joe, a science fiction author, as well as a horror author. And me, fellas, I've never quite admitted to this, but I'm going to admit to this. And that is, when it comes to science fiction, for me, it's that game, The Floor is Lava. And science is lava. I love everything about science fiction, except not crazy about the science. And when I say that, of course, I mean hard science. I mean, like, let's talk science. Like, that's not quite what I'm good at. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining me and guaranteeing the audience gets a scientific and a science fiction perspective to the show.
Well, I, of course, yield to Craig's vastly superior knowledge of the so-called hard science. Of course, we all love what we consider to be science fiction as opposed to and science fantasy, Star Trek versus Star Wars, for example.
Right.
But I'm like you, John. I think I know a lot of the so-called actual science, and the more it applies to the fiction we're watching or listening to, the more enjoyable. But then again, I don't claim to know everything about everything either. So again, Craig, thank you for being here to help us along with those points.
Well, thanks, guys. You're giving me too much credit.
No pressure.
Well, let me tell you where that's going to come in tonight, Craig. I am actually going to flip how we're going to do this. Usually we do a shorter show. We do the shorter show in the front, and then we do the main. And the main event is a longer show. In this case, it's a 30-minute show. We're going to start with it. And then we will do, as an amusing dessert, we will have our shorter show. And I'll tell you this. The shows are written by two of the absolute giants of science fiction. The very first one we're going to hear is a show called Favorite Story, and the episode is From Earth to the Moon by Jules Verne. Fascinating show on so many levels. I'm very, very excited about that. And then our delicious dessert is going to be the very famous story, and I don't know if either of you are familiar with it, but let me know if you are. Do you guys know the Ray Bradbury story, 0 Hour?
No, zero. I don't know this one, though. I don't. It doesn't ring a bell. Hey, Greg.
Yeah.
Now, when you hear
That's-
it, it might be familiar.
Okay.
But it is in terms of old time radio. If any old time radio fans are joining us in the audience, well, please jump over into the comments and feel free to say anything to us during this live broadcast. But if you know old time radio, you have probably heard this story before. It has been done on a number of shows in old time radio over the course of the 40 years in which really intensely great old time radio was performed. And Ray Bradbury, of course, just one of the absolute giants of the field. So looking forward to experiencing that with you guys.
Wonderful.
I've heard that one many times. Really like it. So let's talk about our very first one. Let's talk about favorite story. There's a couple of reasons why I chose this. First off, favorite story occasionally would do some science fiction. It was rare. Most of the time they would do book adaptations, and there might be a story from James Thurber or O. Henry, popular authors, and they would do a really nice job, especially considering they would take an entire book and do it in half an hour. Pretty impressive. Here's another thing about favorite story. We have been listening to shows that are explicitly horror or sci-fi or both. And so we're hearing Dimension X. We're hearing, Arch Obler's Lights Out. We're hearing a lot. Quiet Please, we listened to last week. We're hearing a lot of very genre shows. They kind of occupy their own corner of old time radio. But what about the mainstream of old time radio? What were your parents listening to? If you were a kid in the early 50s or the mid 40s, what did the old folks like to hear? And this is the kind of show that they liked. Favorite story. You're going to hear great music. You're going to hear great acting, really nice production,
Okay.
really decent script. And it's a treat for me because I haven't played you guys a lot of what's the popular stuff in old time radio? I haven't played you a lot of that. So this is your chance to hear the very conventional type of old time radio that you would hear back in the golden age, which we usually say is from 1930 to 1960. So without further ado, I just want to remind the folks at home that we do interrupt the show as we go. If Mr. Townsel or Mr. Lubin wants to raise his hand, I will stop the show. We will get our comments out. We like to keep them kind of quick. So don't worry that we'll interrupt for too long. And then we'll get back to the show. It's listening to radio with your friends, which is my new favorite way of listening to old time radio. Gentlemen, I present to you now favorite story.
We called on Mr. Carveth Wells, world traveler extraordinary. We asked him to select his favorite story for dramatization on this program. Well, he told us that his favorite actually had nothing to do with earthly travels at all. Its title, From the Earth to the Moon, by the dean of all science fiction writers, Jules Verne. So for those of you who would like to travel 500,000 miles in the next half hour, here's Carveth Wells' favorite story.
Bullock's in downtown Los Angeles, one of America's great stores, proudly originates this radio program for the nation. Favorite story.
Should throw in this was produced in Los Angeles, Bullock's being a Los Angeles.
This is the program which stars the story. And that means our star this week is Jules Verne's From the Earth to the Moon.
story you are about to hear was written more than a half-century ago by a man whose mind belonged to the age of tomorrow. And so, while telling Jules Verne's tale basically as he wrote it, we're including a few modern phrases and present-day devices which we're sure Verne himself would include if he were adapting his own story for radio today. So here is
Fair
Carveth
enough.
Wells' favorite story,
Makes sense.
Act 1.
I got a quiz coming up for you guys, by the way. Listen carefully.
When I, sitting, heard the astronomer where he lectured, with much applause in the lecture room, how soon, unaccountable, I became tired and sick, till rising and gliding out, I wandered off by myself in the mystical moist night air, and from time to time looked up in perfect silence at the stars.
There is?
Yes, Father?
What's that?
A poem.
A poem? It doesn't rhyme.
Mr. Walt Whitman's poems very often don't rhyme.
Mr. Walt Whitman. Cerise, how did you happen to pick that poem?
Oh, I don't know. When I brought coffee to you and Mr. Maston and Captain Nichol, you were talking about the moon. That may be what brought the poem to mind.
Cerise, my child, how far away do you think it is? The moon?
Oh, 1,000,000 miles.
Much nearer, much, much nearer. So near that your old father can reach out and touch it. Do you think I'm crazy?
No, Father.
Well, Nichol does. He thinks the war was too much for me and that I've worked too hard, that I'm going out of my senses. Well, when they learn tomorrow of the release I'm giving the press concerning a plan I have, a lot of people are going to agree with him.
All right, now I want to jump in here. The guy playing the father, do you recognize the voice?
Oh no.
Oh no.
Okay. So we're going to be going a little further. He is the male lead of this play, and I will tell you who he is, but I'm going to give you just a little more time to hear him and see if you can place his voice. He has done things in TV from easily the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and I think even 90s. He's a very famous voice. You'll kick yourself once I tell you who it is.
Well, since you did pause, I want to point out just even so far, and I guess because of what we've heard of the performances, the music, and the production values, oddly enough, as a radio play, it has more of a cinematic feel than I'm accustomed to hearing on the shows we typically listen to.
Very, very true, Joe. Yeah, very true. And do you have a feeling of why that might be? I have my theory.
Well, only because of the quality of the production, or off the top of my head. I mean, we're not. Yeah. And I know a lot of these are because we're getting them, not because the original production was staticky and so forth, but it's just so crystal clear. And again, the use of music and along with the performances. And one other observation, which I think might lend it to that, is I thought it was a really nice touch at the beginning, saying, "Hey, if Jules Verne had written, was doing this production himself, he would have updated it to include contemporary references and so forth." I think that was a real nice touch to the believability of what we're about to do.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. It's the music and the fact that it was probably recorded in a giant room with a full orchestra. Frequently, mainstream radio was done that way. A lot of times, the shows we listen to,
the audio quality already is much better than what we've heard in the past.
Very true, and I must thank my friend Jerry. I got this copy of the show from him, and he is great at sort of rescuing shows and rehabilitating them, making them sound better. But he also finds transcription discs and often records off them himself. So Jerry does some really high quality stuff. I was thrilled that he had a show that I could play for you guys. Already, I have delayed too long. Let's get back to From Earth to the Moon.
Baltimore, Maryland. A rather startling news announcement has come from the office of Mr. E.J. Barbicane, president of Barbicane Industries, one of America's foremost producers of war material. The entire production capacity of Barbicane Industries, ladies and gentlemen, will be devoted to the manufacture of an apparatus for sending a rocket-propelled projectile into outer space to try to establish direct contact with the moon.
Industry working towards space.
What's the use of it, Barbicane? Pouring $5 million into a completely profitless enterprise.
Nickel, you're profit mad. That's the trouble with this country. We've lost the frontier spirit. After all, why not explore this moon of ours? It may turn out to hold more profit than you think, Nickel. Mineral wealth, perhaps, and there may be inhabitants of some sort who will exchange ideas with us. Who knows?
Are you really serious?
Maston, Nickel, you are two of my oldest friends. We went through college together. For years, we've worked together to make Barbicane Industries one of the world's leading producers of guns and planes. Now comes the big chance. A chance to build something instead of blowing up something. And I want you with me on this. I need your enthusiasm and your brains.
It's cockeyed, E.J., but I'm with you.
Oh, I'm not. You can't pull me into line with sentiment, Barbicane. I think you're moonstruck. And what's more, I'll bet you $5,000 your crazy projectile never gets outside the Earth's atmosphere. And I'll bet you 10,000 more that it never comes within 1,000 miles of the moon.
Nickel, it's a bet.
Well, I hope I lose, but I won't.
I hope you lose too, Captain. And I think you will.
Father.
Oh, yes, Cerise.
There's a phone call for you from Europe.
From Europe? Oh, well, I'll take it on this extension. Hello?
Hello, Monsieur Barbicane?
Yes, this is Barbicane speaking.
I am Michel Ardon. I am calling from Paris. Monsieur, have you completed your plans for your rocket to the moon?
No, the plans are not completed.
Good, good. You will have to revise them. Change all your blueprints. Make your projectile large enough to carry a human being.
Good Lord, why?
Because I, Michel Ardon, am going inside.
How awesome is that?
Great timing. Are we listening to Raymond Burr?
Good guess. No, sir. It is not Raymond Burr.
Darn.
No.
Okay. Craig, did you want to take a shot at it?
Charles Lawton.
Ooh, another good guess. These are both Raymond Burr and Charles Lawton did excellent work in radio. They were absolute stalwarts of radio, but neither one of you has gotten it. Gentlemen, may I mention, I'm going to mention a couple of shows here, and I'm going to start with Jake and the Fat Man.
Oh, I know who it is.
Cannon. And the narrator of Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Oh, that's
Meanwhile,
right.
the plucky squirrel. It's William Conrad.
Mr. William Conrad, yes. As soon as you said the first, I said, oh, dang it.
Yeah.
William Conrad was such an all-around player in radio. He did every kind of show. He played Matt Dillon in the show Gunsmoke.
Wow.
Right. And the radio version, of course.
The radio version, exactly.
Yeah, not many
James
people know that Gunsmoke was on the radio first, then it went to TV, right? So
correct.
Yeah,
correct.
Like many shows were. Yeah.
And it's funny because many years ago, I was on YouTube. I actually ran across a commercial promoting the upcoming TV show Gunsmoke. And it's a commercial with John Wayne in it. And he's like, well, I hope you'll watch this show, Gunsmoke. It features my friend, James Arness. And meanwhile, and this is a terrible story, the cast of Gunsmoke had been told that there was going to be a TV show. But what they had not been told was it wasn't them. They were going to recast every role. That's Hollywood. That's the Hollywood I know. That's the Hollywood that kicked my butt. And poor William Conrad actually got hooked on barbiturates. So it's said. because he was trying to take diet pills to lose enough weight so that he would look good as Marshall Dillon.
Oh, shoot.
Oh man.
And he never lost the weight. And then he was a speed freak for a while, which definitely helped with Rocky and Bullwinkle. Meanwhile, the plucky squirrel and the Upsidaisium were stolen by...
I do have one more credit for Mr. Bill Conrad.
Yeah.
He was the narrator for the opening credits for the Buck Rogers TV show, but only the first season. They replaced him for some reason in the second season.
That's right.
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah, but he was, for year one, he was the guy that gave you the premise.
That's because the second season was an alleged attempt to make the show more space oriented, like Star Trek.
Exactly.
Just there's a whole story behind that. But
Yeah. Oh, that's yeah, you're right. I watched that not too long ago. I watched the pilot episode, and you're right. It was William Conrad or Bill Conrad. If you feel like he's a friend of yours, I don't think anyone.
So I feel especially silly for not knowing that tonight. No, it was him.
It's it's shades. Like the differences of different voices are just so slight. I've been in voiceover for like 30 years now, and there are other guys who sound like me, which is weird because I think I have an incredibly weird voice. But yeah, sometimes you're just weird variations off of each other. And then I'll get a call every once in a while and be like, we had Craig T. Nelson working on this thing, but now he's too busy. So can you come in and do a voice match for him?
Oh, wow.
And, I could do a little bit of a Craig T. Nelson. Just a little. It's not that, it's usually I'm auditioning. I don't necessarily get it. But, oh, God, who's the guy who he originated Talk Soup?
Oh, Greg Kinnear.
Greg Kinnear.
Yeah.
I've done some voice matching for Greg Kinnear.
I am impressed, sir.
And again, these are great actors. I don't think I'm on their level at all, but it's a weird business where voices sound the same. Okay, I'm sorry. Here's another thing I just wanted to touch upon. Jules Verne captures this idea that weapons manufacturers are weary making weapons, and that they'd like to do something like go to the moon.
Yeah. The gun club, because I know this story, the gun club that's going to be described is exactly that.
Yeah.
And some other time I can tell you guys, talk about this, but there was a whole comic book based on this gun club and the ships they built. I'll dig it up. It was called Planetary. Several stories about these guys and their secret adventures in space. It's a whole different thing.
That was in Planetary?
It's a comic book called Planetary.
Yeah, that's a great book. I loved that book, but I only read like the first.
One of the main stories. There was they found all these projectiles flying in space, and they're from this gun club, and they were coming back to the planet.
That is genius! Oh God, I love that book. All right, here we go. Speaking of genius, back to Jules Verne's From Earth to the Moon, and one that you and your grandma can enjoy together. It's such a classy show. Here we go.
All Nations Airlines incoming flight 72, the Paris Express, now deplaning passengers at gate 9.
Do you think he'll be on this plane, Father?
Oh, the airline people have him on the passenger list. Now, how the devil am I going to handle this fellow?
How do you mean, handle him?
Cerise, I've got to talk him out of this insane idea of traveling to the moon inside my projectile.
But why?
Well, it would be like hitching a ride to a comet.
Ah, Monsieur Barbicane, I recognize you from your pictures.
Oh, yes, you're Ardin.
I am? It is so kind of you to meet me.
My pleasure. This is my daughter, Cerise.
My pleasure. Mademoiselle?
How do you do?
Well, let's get underway. Get your bags, Ardin. I have a cab waiting to take you to town.
Only a cab? What a pity. I thought you would have a rocket waiting to take me immediately to the moon.
Greg Lubin, as the father of daughters, does this Frenchman present any red flags? Because I don't know.
Because considering some of the tropes of the time, yes.
I hear that and I go, whoop, better get between those two. Gotta watch out for the Frenchman. Okay, here we go.
Here is the plan. I've checked all our data with the head of Cambridge Observatory. He assures us that an initial velocity of 1,200 yards per second will be enough to drive the projectile out of the Earth's gravitational field.
1,200 yards per second. That's how many miles an hour?
A little less than 2,500 miles an hour.
Ah, a good fast clip. And will I arrive at the moon by Christmas?
The projectile will arrive in about 4 days.
Considering the retarding action of the atmosphere, the projectile should strike the moon's surface at midnight of the 4th of December, after traveling 97 hours, 13 minutes, and 20 seconds.
I wonder if the Selenites will be glad to see me.
The who?
The Selenites, the inhabitants of the moon.
There are no inhabitants of the moon.
I do not believe it, and I'm going to find out.
Damn, you're a...
Okay, yes, Mr. Lubin.
So the idea is to have a capsule and shoot it off the surface of the planet at escape velocity.
Yes.
The problem with that is the escape velocity on the surface of the planet is about 33 times the speed of sound.
Oh my. Oh my.
It reduces the higher you get up. So when Apollo and solids go up, when they get up, it gets less and less and less.
Oh, wow.
But if you're off the surface of the planet, you have to be going very, very fast.
Now, just this whole concept that they basically build a giant gun, and they keep saying projectile, but you know what they mean is bullet. They made a giant shell.
If it was a long track with a slower acceleration and they hit the speed at the top, it'd still be an incredible feat of engineering. That'd be less impactful on our squishy human bodies.
Oh wow!
You know what this concept seems a little reminiscent of. Of course, it coming first, both in literature and radio play, reminds me of the movie When Worlds Collide, as far as the technology.
Yes.
Remember, that's right. Exactly. Remember, they had the rocket sled. As hokey as that was more of a realistic construct.
Well, it was definitely convincing at the time, and even.
Oops. Oh gosh, darn it! We froze. We froze on Mr. Townsel.
I'll try to finish up his thought. So that movie came out in the 50s, early 50s. So yes, for that time, it was a better representation, but it's the same idea. But
there's a little bit of hard science there.
There was another show called When Things Are Coming. I think it's the next
The Shape of Things to Come.
That's right. Same concept. Literally a gun, a big ass gun with a shoots it out, just like I think it's portrayed in this Jules Verne story.
Excellent. Okay, Mr. Townsel, I think I'm going to drop this one and have you come back in because it looks like we got to. Oh, he moved. No. All right, I'm going to have him come back. Mr. Lubin, you are carrying the burden for both men now. Here we go.
Time is short, and I refuse to change my plans to let you commit suicide. This is madness.
Monsieur Barbicane, in another age, I should have been an explorer on this planet. A Columbus, a Marquette, a Balboa, perhaps. Now, if one should seek a new horizon, he must leave this earth. You see, monsieur, I am in my own way a seeker for immortality. I would be remembered as the Columbus of the interstellar space, the first man in history to bridge the vastness of the sea of sky.
I tell you, it's fantastic. Fantastic, impossible, and absurd.
Father?
Huh? Oh, hello, Cerise. I didn't know you were here.
I've been listening. Do you realize, Father, you sound just like Captain Nickel?
What?
Well, that's the way he talks to you about your ideas. And if Michel wants to explore a new frontier, as you call it, why should you stand in his way?
Your daughter, at least, seems to understand, monsieur.
But the shock. No human being can stand such an impact.
Then you will find a way to cushion that impact. I cannot believe that the Barbicane who marshaled the industrial forces of America to win a war can be defeated by such a mere technicality.
How can you argue with a man like that?
Then you will let him go in the projectile?
Well, yes. On one condition.
And what is that, monsieur?
I will let you know when the time comes.
Joe, you want to take a guess at the condition? Mr. Lubin, you want to take a guess at what condition the man has? I'm not going to leave you guys hanging.
I'm sure you of the radio audience can hear in the background that voice on the public address system here at the launching platform. Only 100 seconds to the 0 hour, the hour at which the intrepid young Frenchman, Michel Ardan, will be hurled into interplanetary space by Barbicane's jet-propelled rocket.
1 minute, 30 seconds.
There's a large crowd gathered here near the mouth of the huge gun, which will fire this man-carrying projectile to the moon. At least that's the hope of Barbicane and the scientists.
Human cannonball.
Michel, do be careful.
I have my vitamin pills, darling. There's absolutely nothing to worry about.
Oh, darling, is it?
Michel and I have been getting acquainted these past few weeks.
Oh,
Michel,
red
at the instant of fire,
flags.
simply relax against the bulkhead. The hydraulic mechanism will absorb most of the shock.
I'll relax, all right, Monsieur Maston. That's one thing I'm an expert at doing.
And Ardan, be sure to radio us when you leave the Earth's atmosphere.
Right, Captain.
That will be my signal to pay Barbicane $5,000 of the lost bet.
Well, you'll have to pay it to Cerise, Captain. I won't be here to collect it.
Where will you be, Father?
With Michel and the projectile.
You're both going?
Remember, I told Michel he could go on one condition. And this is the condition, that I accompany him.
You'd better take your place, gentlemen. Only 40 seconds.
Well, goodbye, old friends. Master Nickel. Goodbye, Cerise.
Goodbye, Father.
Don't worry, Cerise. I'll take care of him.
30 seconds.
Au revoir, my darling.
Au revoir.
Come, Michel. To new frontiers.
To new frontiers.
20
Pretty
seconds.
good French accent.
2-0. Clear the launching platform.
I mean, it's frontier, but, still, not so bad.
Stand by. Stand by. Prepare for
15
detonation.
seconds. 1-5. 1-4. 1-3.
The excitement
1,
here at the
2.
launching platform,
1,
ladies and
1.
gentlemen, is reaching a
10
fever.
seconds.
The crowd falls
9
back.
seconds.
The moon-bound
8
rocket
seconds.
is about to
7
take
seconds.
off.
6 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2 seconds. 1 second.
Good sound effects.
Well, they're on their way.
It looks as if I've lost a bet, Maston.
I think you're going to lose another one, too. I think they'll reach the moon.
And can you imagine how the world will welcome them when they get home?
When they get home?
Yes. How long do you suppose it'll be before they come back to the Earth? A week? 10 days?
Come back? Didn't you know, Cerise? They're on a one-way ticket. They'll never come back.
What?
Oh, you're wrong. I know you're wrong.
There is no launching platform on the moon. The fuel will be gone. No, Cerise. Resign yourself. We'll never see your father or Michel again.
Oh. But we will. If I hadn't been sure of that, I never would have encouraged them to go. I know very little of science, Mr. Maston, but in my woman's heart, I'm sure beyond all doubt, my father and Michel will return to Earth, and to me, alive.
So many
In a moment,
thoughts.
Act 2.
This is
Okay.
something that should have been figured out way before launch. It's gonna.
There's a lot of last minute stuff going on here. It's like 40 seconds to launch. Well, we'd better be getting going. Yeah, 40 seconds. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, I reacted when I heard the and I hate to think that I have a single-minded brain when it comes to Star Trek, but the New Frontier, I just automatically brought that to my mind, and I'm hoping I don't know this story before listening to it now. Never read it, and I'm hoping it's going to be the same optimistic approach that we're used to seeing with Gene Roddenberry's works.
Yeah.
So we shall see. But the one thing I was trying to say when my internet didn't cooperate was they mentioned also, which I'm going to predict they're going to have a hand in getting these poor guys back to Earth, whatever beings apparently exist on the moon, according to the one character. And
Rod
Serling did attempt to answer that question in Night Gallery. Forgive me, I don't know the name of the episode, but they did determine that there were large mice living on the moon eating all the cheese. And I'm not kidding when I say that was an episode of Night Gallery.
Get out of here.
I love it.
I never knew that. That's amazing. Imagine, if you will, giant mice.
That's exactly
need
right.
No air.
They need no air. They just trounce along and
just eat the cheese. And then what? What does the mice poop do to like renew the cheese? I don't know. That's an ecosystem that I do not understand, Mr. Serling.
nor do we really care to.
Yes, and I have to say, Craig and Joe, that I also think that there is a very optimistic take that we're hearing. I'm not going to write these guys off. They might get back. It would be hilarious if Jules Verne was like, because the people on there said, you guys got to go. You got to leave. I mean, hats off to them for saying well, there might be natives on the moon and we'll do trade with them, as opposed to what history would say, which would be, and we'll enslave them and bring them back. So hats off, but that's not what we're looking at. Even though they're trying to be the Christopher Columbuses of space. All right, here we go. We are halfway through the show. Intermission. I guess everybody went out to smoke and maybe buy some Junior Mints and maybe an egg cream. And now we're back for the show. Here we go. Favorite story from Earth to the Moon, Act 2.
Favorite story, Jules Verne's From the Earth to the Moon. Annoying, isn't it, the repeated ringing of your doorbell? Bullocks asks you to imagine for a moment how annoying the sound would be if it were multiplied 152 times, 152 ringings of your doorbell, each one heralding a solicitation from you for a worthwhile welfare or social agency, each one well deserving of your attention. But instead of 152 ringings, you will hear only the one lone ring of your volunteer community chest worker, one call to do the job of 152. Bullock's Downtown wishes to urge that you think carefully on the special importance of this neighbor's call. Remember that you and your neighbor, through the community chest, are waging the greatest of all wars, the war against the ever-present ravages of disease, delinquency, crime, poverty, divorce, hunger, physical and mental illness.
Boy,
ruthless enemies that annually claim human tolls far in excess of the worst score of World War II.
Let me just ask quickly, did either of you guys know that the community chest was a thing, or were you like me and you just thought it was part of Monopoly, the board game?
I knew it was something. Until I heard this, I didn't really have a big handle on what it was exactly, but I knew it was a real thing that was kind of philanthropic in various neighborhoods.
My father, having being an older guy and having us quite late in life, told us all about this. This was a big deal, especially when he came to the U.S. in the 40s.
Oh, wow. Right? Yeah. And I suppose, when we were kids, there was the United Way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was like a umbrella organization over a bunch of smaller
Way,
charities.
UNICEF, a whole bunch of other.
Yeah. So there you go. Community chest. It was literally a thing that helped the community, sort of an Uber charity that helped the smaller charities. That's a nice deal. I hope it wasn't too corrupt. But anyway,
even the commercials are classier in this presentation tonight.
They are. Like, good for you, Bullocks. Very classy. All right, here we go.
The fight against these evils is a constant one. It must be carried on every second of every minute of every day throughout the world. It is your fight to protect your family, your home, your community. You must do your share. When this week you answer your doorbell to the community chest, Bullock suggests you please consider carefully your responsibility and your opportunity. Remember that it is 152 calls in one. And give enough.
Give enough.
That's by directive.
Now Act 2 of Carveth Wells' favorite story, From the Earth to the Moon, with William Conrad as Barbicane.
There's that bullet.
A bullet presented by Bullet.
That's the ship.
Calling the Earth. Calling the Earth. Calling any radio stations on Earth. This is Barbicane. This is Barbicane and Rocket Projectile calling observatories on the Earth. Do you read our signal? Over.
No answer. What's wrong?
I don't know, Michel. Our radio equipment must have been shaken up in the launching. They can't hear us, we can't hear them.
Do you feel all right?
I think so.
How long were we unconscious after the takeoff?
About 2 hours. Earth hours, that is.
What do you mean, Monsieur? Earth hours?
Time gets twisted out here in space, Michel. And an hour is a much different length of time when we're traveling at this enormous rate of speed.
Is that true, Craig?
Craig Lubin, does that pan out?
So that is true. There was a book that came out in 2013 called Red Thunder. It's about these guys who, in like 100 years in the future, build their own ship to go to Mars. Yeah. Won't go into details. And one of the problems that happens, their full gain antennas shear off during launch. However, that happened because these guys were amateurs and doing it on a budget. You would think, so yes, you'd be aware of this and you make sure that doesn't happen. And you go in triplicates. You have a redundant system. You've got several full gain antennas just in case this happens. That's all. Common flying and space exploration. You don't have 2, you have 3 of everything.
Yeah. That's funny because one of the things that crops up a lot in Star Trek is they have redundancies. They have redundant systems.
Because in space exploration, then and to this day, it's always a question of when it's going to fail. It's not a question of if. Something will always fail. It's assumed it will go. So you have 3 or at least of them when that does happen.
Yeah, that Murphy's Law, man. All right, here we go. Back to the show.
Aren't you acquainted with Einstein?
I regret to say, monsieur, we have never been introduced. All I know is that my Earth appetite tells me I'd like something to eat.
Oh, well, there are some high-nourishment food capsules here in the locker. I'll have them ready for us in a moment. You just relax and pretend you're at home in your own sitting room in Paris.
Whatever you say, Monsieur Barbicane. You know...
Good Lord, man, put out that cigarette. We've barely enough oxygen to sustain life for a week without wasting it by burning tobacco.
Oh, you are right, of course.
Here's your dinner.
Is this all? One little cup full of...
Yes, Mr. Lubin.
You don't smoke in a pure oxygen environment. Because of the
that
big
is really funny.
I'm done.
Oh my God, the guy had a cigarette. I love it.
Just relax here in this space capsule. I'll have myself one of my silk coats.
I'm trying to find, I think I had a date on this. Okay, so this show, let me get Joe back in here.
Thanks, guys.
So, hey, man, we've been there. We've been there. So this aired in November 5th of 1946. And I just can't help but feel they were like, well, if you're relaxing, of course you're going to pull out a cigarette. It's 1946. They're like a nickel a pack. I just love that. Okay, so the industrialist has just yelled at the Frenchman for lighting a cigarette. Come on, what did he expect?
Brown water?
Well, that contains more nutrition than many a 6-course dinner, monsieur. Enough energy to keep you going until daylight.
Monsieur Barbicane, it's daylight now. There's the sun.
Well, I didn't expect we'd be out of the Earth's shadow so soon.
That's strange. The sun is up, but the sky is still black.
Out here in space, there is no atmosphere to scatter it into blue.
It's odd seeing the sun and the stars at the same time, and the moon, too, a full moon.
The moon may be full, but to us, my friend, the Earth is new.
What do you mean?
Look behind us. You see that long, thin crescent in the sky?
Sacré cieux. It fills up half the sky.
That's sunrise on our Earth. From where we're watching, the world is in its first quarter.
How far away is it now? The Earth?
A radius, perhaps 4,000 miles. Farther away than man has ever traveled from the sordid soil of our planet.
Yes. And growing farther away every instant. Farther away from her.
You know, your daughter.
Could have locked her up.
Well, at least I got that Frenchman in space.
Captain Nichol, Mr. Maston, is there no word at all?
None, Cerise. None of the reports at this observatory or any of the others have revealed the least sign of the rocket.
And all efforts at radio contact have failed.
I'm afraid, Cerise, that we must face the facts.
No, they're alive. I'm absolutely certain of it.
How do you know, Cerise?
I told you before. A woman knows things. And I tell you, my father and Michelle are both alive.
As God is my witness.
The heat, Monsieur Barbicane, the heat in this rocket is almost unbearable.
I must make a note of that. Next projectile should be painted lighter color to reflect more of solar rays.
What good is it, Monsieur, to keep making notes? Who will ever read them?
On his way back from the South Pole, Scott kept writing until the hour of his death, and others found his words and profited by them. Others will come this way again, Michelle.
Are we halfway there by now?
We're more than halfway. According to my calculations, within a few moments we will be at the midpoint between the gravitational fields of the Earth and the Moon. In other words, we'll soon cease flying away from the Earth and start falling toward the Moon.
Then it calls for a celebration, doesn't it? We have a bottle of wine here. Let's open it and celebrate our arrival in the lunar sphere of influence.
I could have predicted that. Why didn't I? Mr. Townsel, you had a comment, sir.
Well, you know, one of the things that contemporary Star Trek gets knocked for on occasion is quote unquote technobabble.
Yes.
I think we're seeing some of the earliest instances of it here. It's kind of edging a little bit toward too much explanation versus staying with the drama. But, you know, it's kind of beneficial, though, because it does paint a very, to me at least, a very realistic picture of what it's actually like to take this journey.
I appreciate that very much. That is very much an author's point of view. And you actually point out one of the things that kind of makes me phase out a little bit with science fiction, which is when you get into the science, I can't quite picture it or imagine it. It takes somebody clever like Mr. Lubin to explain things to me in a way to which I can relate. And Mr. Lubin, is there anything to this? Like, well, it's so hot, I probably should have painted this thing a lighter color.
So it depends how they're flying. Normally, what would be cooking them would be radiation. There's a lot of it in space. A lot. Space is like getting an X-ray 24/7. So that would be. So if they're not shielded, yeah. At the very least, they're walking away with cancer.
Oh my God. Or at the worst, the cosmic rays get them and then they're Fantastic Four. Again, me telling you what I know about science, which is nothing.
So that's not far off. There was a solar flare and there was that much radiation. They wouldn't be commenting on it. They would be, it's like being in a microwave.
Oh my God, that's awful. 1946, maybe they were just blissfully ignorant of that kind of radiation at that point, I'm guessing.
Well, it seems so, but it's too bad that they weren't as enlightened as we, for the most part, are today, because they could have sent the...
Oh, gosh darn it, we lost that.
So, yeah.
Everybody's got a little rough connection tonight, folks.
But back to your points, that was not known back then. I'm pretty sure I have to look, but yeah.
No, I think you're right. I think they're trying to be as sort of scientifically current as they can be.
They're commenting on the reflected radiant heat from the sun.
Yeah,
is what they're talking about.
I mean,
not radiation.
It's interesting they say that though, because weren't like all of the rockets in the Apollo program, weren't they white?
Yes.
Pretty interesting.
But they were shielded heavily.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. They're aluminum, titanium composite. They're lightweight material.
Right. Okay, so unfortunately, Mr. Townsel is going to lose a couple more minutes while he tries to get back on his internet, and I hope you do, Joe.
Here
Please
are the wine
come.
glasses.
Ce n'est pas possible. The glass just hangs in the air. How do you do that?
Quite a trick, isn't it?
Is it magic?
You can do the same thing, Michel. There's no gravity. We're passing the point where the Earth's attraction cancels out that of the moon, and vice versa. In other words, nothing weighs anything, and everything weighs nothing.
I need a drink. Now what's wrong? The wine won't pour.
Why should it? Shake it, Michel. That will force the liquid out.
The wine just hanging in the air like a blob of jelly.
Oh, this is sloppy, Michel. We'll have to push the wine into the glasses with our fingers, I guess. Like this.
Monsieur Barbicane, I never...
Okay, Mr. Lubin.
Oh, that's cool. They got that right and bald. That was well done, especially for the time.
Yeah, 1946. It's great they knew that. Of course, I would be like the video game character Kirby, and I would just be flying around like sucking up the wine clouds. Like,
now would it have become like gelatinous, like they're describing, as far as the zero gravity liquid?
It'll be a ball. You get out, it'd be a ball of liquid. You kind of have to suck it in like Kirby.
That is a very astute point than they had back then. I admire that.
Really cool. That is really cool. Okay, I do want to just throw this up because our friend Mario El Tiburon has joined us. And is Mr. Townsel stealing the internet from the McDonald's next door? Good evening, fellas.
I wish I
It
was.
was hilarious. It's not a bad plan. Thank you, Mario. That's a good plan. And honestly, that makes me want to move next door to a McDonald's because my signal's never that great. All right, going back to the story. Here we are from Earth to the moon.
Realize that what a convenience gravitation is.
Toast, then, to gravitation.
To gravitation. Listen, what's that?
Sounds like air escaping.
Uh-oh.
No, our pressure's still normal.
Barbicane, mon Dieu. Look out of this window.
A mountain of rock.
It's coming straight toward us. Can we steer out of the way?
With what, my boy? There's nothing to steer with. We can't push against ether. No, Michel, all we can do is pray it misses us.
It's practically on top of us. We'll be crushed.
No, it may go by. We may be safe.
It's past.
Yes, thank the Lord.
What was it, monsieur?
A meteor.
Wait, that was the sound of it not hitting them? It sounded like a crash to me. Holy cow. Okay.
It's like George Carlin used to describe it in his stand-up. He said that was called a near miss. He said, no, that was a near hit.
We may be safe.
It's past.
Yes, thank the Lord.
What was it, monsieur?
A meteor, a piece of a worn-out comet, perhaps, or a chunk of rock on its way to becoming a shooting star.
Some fate has been kind to us, Barbicane. We can still reach the surface of the moon.
I'm not so sure, Michel.
Why not?
The gravitational pull of that meteor is something we didn't plan on. It seems it swerved us off of our course. Look at the nose of our rocket, Michel. It is no longer pointed toward the moon.
That's some good
Cerise,
music.
Captain Nickel, I found the projectile. I can see it here in the telescope field.
Let me look.
Can you see any sign of life?
There's nothing but a point of light like a star, but it seems to move slowly toward the northern limb of the moon.
The northern limb? That isn't right.
No, something went wrong with our calculations. The rocket is thousands of miles off its course.
That little star. That little fleck of light at the moon's edge. Is that you, Father? Is that you, Michelle? Do you know I'm watching you, Father? Do you know my heart is out there in space with you? 250,000 miles away. Michelle, do you know I love you?
Okay, do you guys
Yeah.
remember the Warner Brothers cartoon with Sylvester the cat and he's got his little son?
Oh, sure.
And the little cat, the little son is like,
Oh, Father, oh, how I despair, and how many times that mouse has defeated you, oh, Father.
that's what I'm getting from her.
I'm also kind of reminded of, speaking of Warner Brothers, I'm also reminded of like the Pepe Le Pew cartoons.
Well, and then there's is she a cat or a mink or something who's doing the Katharine Hepburn with like, oh, the calla lilies are in bloom again. The calla lilies. Okay, well, there's got to be something on this show for my grandma to enjoy because that's who I would have been listening to this with.
We can't be more than 50 miles above it now. The moon. The deserts of the moon.
There's something I want to ask you, monsieur.
Yes? Well, Michelle, what is it?
Your daughter Cerise, would you look with favor upon her marriage?
To the right man?
To me.
Of course, Michelle, but I'm afraid our paths will never lead back to the earth again. Don't think about such things. Don't think backward toward the earth. Think forward toward that burning globe underneath us. No one has seen it as we do now. That circular mountain over there, that's the crater of Tycho Brahe. And the vast stretch of the plateau right beneath us, it's the Mare Imbrium, Sea of Showers.
Monsieur Barbicane, we don't seem to be falling closer to the moon. We seem to be traveling parallel to the surface.
Yes, I've noticed that. Michelle, you and I, in this rocket, may become a moon.
What?
A moon of the moon. We may be bound by Newton's law of gravity to revolve forever about the moon, just as that moon revolves forever about the earth.
They've disappeared. I can't see them in the telescope.
How can they just disappear?
Behind the moon. The projectile has overshot its mark. I believe it's going to revolve around the other side of the satellite.
Nickel, I have news. It may be wonderful news.
What is it?
What kind of news, Master?
We have enough observations of the rocket to plot its course, and knowing the mass of the projectile and the distances involved, I have computed something Barbicane and Michel could never calculate for themselves. I believe I know where they are going.
And we will see them again.
Cerise, the projectile is moving in an open curve, what mathematicians call an hyperbola. Its path will cross the Earth's orbit again. And my friends, if my figures are correct, our brave travelers through space will fall back into the Earth's atmosphere before the end of the week.
Science check. Mr.
Yes,
Lubin.
please.
Mr. Lubin, does this sound like something that could have happened?
Well, all orbits are hyperbolic. So this is normal. Now, I'm and I know I'm breaking the drama of it too. They should have fucking figured this out before.
I spend a lot of my time, and maybe this is just me being an old man and a little bit of a philosopher, but I spend a lot of time talking to younger performers and realizing that a lot of them have a piece of advice that they heard and they don't quite know what it means or how to apply it. And that is fake it till you make it. You don't do that with empirical things. You don't do that with knowledge.
They mentioned Newton, so that's orbital mechanics. So that means they knew about this stuff. So, but the fact that the comet forced them off course, that's possible. Sure.
Yeah. Sure.
But it wouldn't have happened that fast. Comets don't. Yeah. But let's say that did.
Yeah.
Sure. So yes, it's possible.
So you're saying the comets aren't projectiles?
Well, they don't whip.
Interesting.
I mean, I should take that back. If relative velocities are quite fast in space, so it could be that fast. So it's all possible. It's just I'm just fascinated if I didn't do the calculations beforehand.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. There were calculations they could have done. That's your point.
Yeah.
And that's like, guys, you know this stuff. Like the math already existed because they're doing it on Earth. Oh yeah, we sat down and crunched some numbers.
But the orbital stuff they're talking about is complete. That's all cool.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's great to know. Okay, back to the story. We are nearing the pinnacle of the story, gentlemen. We are just about at the climax of this story.
Can't wait.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest news we have on the space projectile carrying Ardon and Barbicane. It has circled the moon and is now plunging back toward the Earth. Sometime tonight, sometime in the next few hours, the rocket-propelled ship will arrive on the Earth's surface. Just a moment, ladies and gentlemen, there's a bulletin coming in. The corvette Susquehanna off the California coast has reported that the moon-bound spaceship crashed into the Pacific Ocean. The Susquehanna steamed to its rescue and picked up both the survivors alive and in good health.
The Susquehanna Hat Company. Slowly I turn.
Wow, like they saved the whole story in like 2 sentences.
I was going to say, what? We're back on Earth,
Oh, and they're back.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, Monsieur Barbicane and I are qualified to speak of the moon's other face because we have seen it, we have photographed it and mapped it. We have brought this hidden world into a scope of men's knowledge.
Sounds like things are getting romantic.
When I, sitting, heard the astronomer where he lectured, with much applause in the lecture room, how soon, unaccountable, I became tired and sick, till rising and gliding out, I wandered off by myself.
Cerise,
Yes, Michel.
I saw you leave. Darling, are you all right?
Of course I'm all right. I just wandered off in the mystical, moist night air, and from time to time
Yes, darling.
looked up in perfect silence at the stars.
Camera cranes up, big shot of the star.
You've been listening to Jules Verne's From the Earth to the Moon, the favorite story choice of Carveth Wells. Favorite Story is brought to you each Tuesday at 9 by Bullock's in downtown Los Angeles, one of America's great stores. Football fans, many of you have been told by Bullock's during the past few weeks that tickets for the USC-UCLA football game would go on sale November 13th at Bullock's football ticket booth in the below street level Bullock's store for men. Bullock's has just been notified by the home team UCLA that due to the unusually large advance sale of tickets, season tickets, alumni, students, and mail applications, that they will not be in a position to provide Bullock's with tickets for public sale, which they originally thought could be arranged. All mail order money will be returned as soon as possible. Heard in this week's cast were William Conrad as Barbicane, George Sorel, Jeff Corey, Byron Kane, Thelma Hubbard, Don Diamond, Bill Pennell, and your announcer, George Barclay. This week's favorite story was directed by True Boardman. Sound designs were by Jack Hayes. Original music was composed by Bob Mitchell, who conducted Claude Sweeten's orchestra. This was a Lawrence and Lee production. Bullock's proudly originates it for the nation.
I like that beanstalk,
Now, here is True Boardman to tell you about next week's favorite story.
Next week, A Portrait in Venom, the great novel about a scheming woman named Becky Sharp, Thackeray's unforgettable Vanity Fair. It's the favorite story choice of one of the greatest novelists of our generation, Mr. Sinclair Lewis. We hope you'll be listening. Until next Tuesday, then, and Vanity Fair, good night to you from Bullock's.
I think Bullock's was like a Macy's, honestly. I think it was like
I agree, because I remember Bullock's.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It was a chain. There was more than one. And this show.
What's interesting about this radio version is that I'm pretty sure the book, there was a sequel to this when they actually come back. In the original book, it ends with them being launched into space.
Interesting, because yes, there was a sequel called Around the Moon.
Oh,
That's right, and that's when they encountered
when
the
they get
comet.
back.
They change the orbit, and then they actually orbit around the moon because they miss their vector going to land.
I am such a crappy reader that I actually love the fact that I can get 2 books in half an hour.
well, so basically the first book was about the destination, clearly, and then the sequel was about the I should say the journey, and the second book was about the destination and back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
And Joe, if you remember, the old Tintin comic did the same thing because they had I think Destination Moon and then Explorers on the Moon. It was in 2 spots. It was about them building the ship. I was a huge Tintin fan. I'm sorry.
Tintin. Oh, look, I know Tintin did some things wrong, but I really did love that comic.
Oh, well, let's not talk about like things like Tintin in the Congo, but the space stuff is actually, the physics behind it is actually pretty cool.
Oh, that's
considered.
great to know, because I never knew that. I believe they have like the fishbowl, if I'm remembering
big fishbowl helmets, big orange suits, red checkered ship.
Oh
But
my
the
God, I love it.
The cool thing about it, when the ship launches, it turns around and deaccelerates and lands, which is that's the way you see things done in shows like The Expanse.
Now that's interesting because
they accelerate at 1G.
Yeah.
They stop. They turn around and they deaccelerate at one gravity. At 1G. So they have that's they do artificial gravity the whole time from the Earth to the Moon in the Tintin book.
They had some good science on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have some friends who have always been like, you don't watch The Expanse? And I'm like, hard science fiction for me is difficult science fiction.
I recommend that because and Joe, you can jump in here because they don't. The science fiction is a character. They don't have to explain it. It is right. So the fact that you're in the ship, that's the way it is. They don't explain, and you get the feel of it without. There's no exposition. There's no technobabble, really. They don't talk about it. This is the way it is, right? There's a great scene.
To me, it's reminiscent of 2001. I mean,
yes,
of course, not the sequel, but the original, where it was just part of the environment, and that's the way it is. It's not need to be explained. We didn't have ray guns and stuff making noises in the vacuum of space, etc. And that was the way, so you had music, of course, to cover the silence sometimes. But yeah, it's just that's not the hardest science fiction, I guess, 2001, but it certainly is up there because it's meant to be realistic. And I got that vibe very much from our play tonight, is that, okay, there might have been a glitch here and there, maybe because of the time it was presented, maybe because they were trying to get through a certain part of the plot a little more quickly than having to stop and explain.
Yeah.
But it definitely had a feel of realism to it tonight, I thought.
I agree, Joe, and I think I'm being harsh on the comet thing. Actually, that was a great way to kind of get the story going. I mean, it's improbable, but it's certainly possible what happened. So it's kind of cool.
One of the points that I have enjoyed, and I actually got this from a Teen Titans comic of all things, and I'm sure it was said somewhere else, but I wasn't there to hear it. But the thing about space travel is you constantly have to work. So many things happen, so many anomalies. We know that word from Star Trek, certainly, that you constantly have to recalculate courses. You constantly have to refigure your original plan, because there's always something that might throw you off, and there's way too many factors for you to anticipate. So it's constant work. I kind of like that.
No, like I said, definitely had to feel a realism, and it clearly meant to play more for it. And I didn't realize this until you explained that it was originally 2 different books. But before even knowing that, I said, well, apparently this was meant to be a suspenseful yarn, as it were.
Yeah.
Not so much about the destination, but the journey. So very effective. And even though I probably missed a couple of key plot points because of my internet access.
And I got to tell you, I don't think you did.
Good.
It was a pretty solid plot, but there weren't a whole lot of, ups and downs in it. But that's fine too. That's very much of the era, 1946. Now I'm going to take you guys to 1958, if I'm remembering this correctly. And
guys, I might have to take off early right now too, because I got something I got to take care of right now.
Oh, no problem, Greg.
But this has been good though.
Always a pleasure to have you, man. It's Craig joins us from the East Coast, so it's really late, and there's a lot of stuff he has to do because he's the man of his house. Whereas
we so appreciate you being here, Craig, and especially under those conditions. And thank you for the science background, because it definitely came in handy tonight.
Yes,
thanks, guys.
Yes,
right.
Big time. All right,
No
take
problem.
care, Craig. Thanks, man. All right, Joe. Kind of haunted radio from Space Classic.
All right,
Capt'n John and Joe Townsel. Here we go. We're going to listen to our dessert, our sweet course for the night. This is from the great series X-1. If you watch haunted radio or listen to haunted radio, we are probably going to do all the episodes of X-1. It is just one of the best series in all of radio. Well made, respectfully, lovingly put together. This was, I'm trying to remember, I think this might have been in their pilot. And the very first episode they did was 2 short stories from Ray Bradbury. So this is the first of the 2. And this, of course, is called a phrase we hear a lot on haunted radio.
Seems like it.
0 Hour. There was an episode called 0 Hour that we've already heard. There was a series from Rod Serling in the 70s called 0 Hour. It's just a well-trod phrase, as they say.
It's
Oh gosh darn, we lost Joe just for a second. This show, the technical difficulties on this show have been nuts. You're still there, Joe? I don't want to start the show without him. If I start the little radio show without him, he's like the one person who can help me listen to the show with you. So hopefully Joe will get back in here. And I'll just vamp for like 1 more minute. And if Joe's not back, I'll just launch it. Oh, there he is. There he is. Okay, let me add him.
We'll get through it, John, I promise.
You poor guy. Okay, it's a 14-minute episode, 14 to 15. So come on, Joe's internet. Help him out, would you? Okay, here we go.
Countdown for blast off. X-5, 4, 3, 2, X-1, fire. From the far horizons of the unknown come transcribed tales of new dimensions in time and space. These are stories of the future, adventures in which you'll live in 1,000,000 could-be years on 1,000 maybe worlds. The National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with Street and Smith, publishers of astounding science fiction, presents X minus 1. Tonight's story, 0 Hour, by Ray Bradbury.
And very quickly, if you're watching the screen of the video while Joe and I are listening to this with you, you will see that I've included from EC Comics a comic book version of this story. So you will see they differ from what you're hearing a bit, so don't let that throw you. But it is really interesting how often and in how many ways this story has been adapted. Very famous story. Here we go. Back to 0 Hour.
It was a perfect summer day in the year 1985.
Ooh, future.
Sunlight illumined the suburbs, and the town drowsed on a tide of warm, sunlit air. On the lawns, the children played, and in the homes, busy mothers prepared for the evening arrival of their husbands.
Excuse me, Mom.
Good heavens, Mink. What's all the excitement?
We're playing a game, Mommy, the most exciting game ever.
What are you doing in that cabinet?
I need some tools from Daddy's kit.
Your father may not
I'll
want...
take good care of them, Mom, I promise.
Very well, dear. Don't lose anything. Oh, what's the name of the game, Mink?
Invasion.
Oh, invasion. What will they think of next?
I love it. Weird fantasy.
This, and this, and this, and this. Put that over there and bring that over here. No, you ninny. Now get back while I fix this. They want it this way. See?
Sure. Just let me fix this.
We'd better talk to Drill and get some more instructions, Art.
Where is Drill? Drill? Hey, Drill. Drill?
He's in the rosebush, I think. I'll talk to him myself, and you write it down on the pad.
Okay.
Drill? Drill? Okay. Drill wants you to write down triangle.
What's a triangle?
Never mind. Drill will tell us when he wants us to know. It helps the invasion.
Well, how do you spell it?
Drill, how do you...
Shh! Mink, here's your mother, looking out the window.
Oh,
Mink,
classic.
Who are you talking to?
The rosebush, Mom. Only it's not really a rosebush. That's Drill.
Well, who's Drill?
He's planning the invasion.
Oh, what an imagination. You'd better come in, dear, and clean up for supper.
In just a second, Mom. Art, did you write down what Drill just said?
Yup. 4, 9, 7, and A, and B, and X, and a fork, and a string, and a hexagony.
Hexagonal, droopy.
Oh.
Come in, Mink. Supper's in 10 minutes.
Okay, Mom, just a minute. I have to tell Drill. I wish we didn't have to eat, though. It holds up the invasion.
That Mink's got an attitude on her.
Mink, for heaven's sake, slow down. You'll choke on that soup.
I can't, Mom. It's a matter of life and death.
What's a matter of life and death?
The invasion.
What invasion is that?
Oh, just some silly game the children have been playing.
Well, whatever it is, Mink, it'll wait until you've finished your supper, I'm sure.
But Drill is waiting for me, Daddy.
Oh, who's Drill? New boy in the neighborhood?
He's new, all right. Only you can't see him. Not yet. He hasn't come through yet.
What do you mean you can't see him?
He lives in a rose bush in our backyard.
Oh.
Imagination, Henry.
Mm-hmm. Well, while you're at it, tell me more about this new game.
It's Martians invading Earth, Dad.
What?
The Martians again.
Well, not exactly Martians, Dad. They're from, I don't know, from up.
And from the inside of that little head of yours.
You're laughing. Drill said you would. You'll kill Drill and everybody.
Well, I didn't know you could kill a Martian.
Not really a Martian, Mom. Maybe he's from Jupiter. Or Venus, even.
Imagine.
They couldn't figure out a way to attack the Earth. So the kids are helping the Martians.
Oh, pretty slick, those Martians, using the kids for a fifth column, eh, Mary?
Drill says after the invasion, we can stay up as late as we want. No more baths either.
Oh, is that so?
And we can watch all the grown-up televisor shows.
Well, I don't wonder this invasion has caught on among the kids.
Some of the kids are giving us trouble, like Dale Britz and Petey Jarrick. They're...
Yes, Mr. Townsel.
Well, my internet seems to be cooperating for the moment.
Yeah.
With the kids especially, I'm definitely getting a Twilight Zone vibe with this one.
Ah, that's a good call. And I think it might have been adapted for Twilight Zone. Yeah, I don't trust my browser or my computer to let me look that up because it messes up. Yeah.
No,
but,
on that trivial point, I mean, no, they never adapted this. Surprisingly, the only Ray Bradbury story they adapted for Twilight Zone was I Sing the Body Electric.
Oh, no kidding. I've never seen that one.
Which was very unusual considering they're so complimentary. And especially hearing that now as far as the tone and the kind of the everyday kind of subtle, no big deal, it's just kids' imaginations until, I'm sure that's coming up real quick.
And that's very, very Bradbury, it is very Serling as well. Like, we're going to tell you a story about an invasion. So we're going to go to a suburb where a girl is going through the screen door and talking to her mom. Like, make it super innocent, super, non-dangerous. And then slowly the danger rears its ugly head.
Monsters are doing Maple Street type of vibe as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. One of the big productions that I did in college was I had a teacher who wrote a radio version of Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. My college, Ithaca College, has a relationship with the Rod Serling estate. And so we were able to do that. And I played the villain. I played not the ultimate villain, but I played the terrible Earth guy, played by Jack Weston.
Yes, the paranoid neighbor.
The paranoid neighbor, exactly. Look what I've done. I have. Okay.
But it is a as Twilight Zone so effectively did often. It's definitely a product of the time because, of course, we were talking about aliens in that episode as well. And then when they remade it in the 80s for the new Twilight Zone, the same story, Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. At that point in the 80s, it was no longer aliens. It was like possible terrorists trying to get them.
Oh, that makes sense too. Because there was very much a Cold War attitude towards it.
Again, the paranoia that just decimated that neighborhood.
Yeah. All right, here we go back to 0 Hour from X-1.
Shows.
Well, I don't wonder this invasion has caught on among the kids.
Some of the kids are giving us trouble, like Dale Britz and Petey Jarrick. They're growing up, so they won't believe in the invasion. They make fun, worse than parents even. I hate them worst. We'll kill them first.
I hope you're saving your father and me for last.
Drill says you're dangerous. Know why?
Why?
'Cause you don't believe the Martians ought to let us kids run the world. But I think they'll let me keep you because I'm helping so much. I'll talk to Drill. Maybe we won't have to kill you.
Mary, I think this nonsense is going far enough.
Can I go out now, please?
Run along, dear.
Don't seem real concerned about their kids.
Just go outside.
Don't worry, Dad. I won't let them hurt you.
This is how it was for a lot of kids. Just get out of the house.
Televisor.
Oh, would you please connect me with Mrs. Helen Rogerson on Channel 72Z, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
What is your channel, please?
817X, New Rochelle, New York.
Thank you. Just a moment. Go ahead. You can see your party now.
Hi, sis. How are things in New York?
Fine, Helen. How are things in Pittsburgh? Oh, you look tired.
Oh, I've been having a terrible time with the children.
Sick?
No, just underfoot. They've got a new game that's got me just about crazy. It's called Invasion.
Did you say invasion?
Oh, no.
That's strange. My mink is playing it, too.
My boy Tim is all involved with some imaginary fellow named Drill, who's running the invasion.
Must be a new password. Mink likes him, too.
How do you suppose these games start? My backyard looks like a scrap drive. They've got every conceivable kind of mechanical gadget out there. I talked to Josephine Schiller in Boston, and she says her kids are wild about it, too. It's sweeping the country.
I can't understand it. Helen, do you suppose...
What?
Oh, nothing. Just a wild thought that crossed my mind. Oh, say, the reason I called is that black and white cake recipe...
What was that?
I don't know.
Scared me.
The children might have hurt himself. I'll have to run and see, dear. Call me back tonight, will you?
Sorry
All right,
about that,
Mary,
everybody.
Mink? What is it? Who was that who screamed?
Peggy Ann.
What happened?
She got scared and ran home.
Did you hit her?
Nope, she just got scared. She's a scare baby anyway.
Now, Mink, tell me why she screamed.
No, I can't.
Mink, you'll answer me or come inside this instant. I've had enough nonsense.
I can't quit now, Mom. It's almost 0 hour.
Then tell me what frightened Peggy Ann.
Okay, she saw Drill. He almost came through.
Through what?
Those pipes and things we set up. She looked into one of the pipes and screamed. I guess she saw Drill.
And no one hit her?
No, Mom.
Very well, Mink. I'll call Peggy Ann's mother and see how she is.
If we could only get Drill through, it would be easy. Then all the others could come through after him.
I'm going in now, Mink. I'll call you in for your bath in half an hour. Your father and I want to go out tonight.
You won't be able to go out, Mom.
Why not?
0 hour is 5 o'clock, Mom.
Hello, dear.
Oh, you're home early, Henry.
Mm-hmm. Thought I'd relax a little before we went to the theater. Where's the little one?
Out back.
Oh, same game?
Mm-hmm. Same game. They've got a stack of pipes and hammers and spoons a mile high out there.
All right, children. Why do we have them?
Well, they are strange creatures, aren't they? Even Mink.
You're going to regret it soon.
She's a part of us, and yet...
Yeah, look, dear, I'd like to discuss this with you, but we do have a theater date, and it's almost 5 o'clock now, so... Say, what's happened to the kids? They're so quiet. Now, when children are quiet, you know there's some mischief.
Cynical.
You know the damn Martians
What's
are coming.
That sound?
I don't know.
Those kids aren't playing with anything electrical, are they?
I'm sure they aren't. At least...
Just the same, I'd better go out.
Henry, ask them to put off the invasion.
Good Lord, what's that? Mary, look out the window.
Henry!
What is it? Where are the children? Mary, why are you shaking? What did you see?
Henry! Quick, up to the attic.
Well, they aren't in the attic.
Yes, the attic, quick.
No, Mary, come back here. Mary, don't go up. They aren't up there. Mary, are you out of your mind? There's no one up here.
Quick, shut the door. Lock it.
But there's nothing up here. What is wrong with you? Now, Mary, come to your senses.
Henry, we've got to stay here and hide.
What are you talking about?
I saw it through the window. Henry, it was horrible. They weren't making believe. It is an invasion.
Oh, Mary, for heaven's sake, let's get down out of this attic and talk this over sensibly. I want to find out if Mink is all right.
She's all right. I saw her. She was leading them around the corner of the house.
Leading who? The kids?
Shh. Listen.
Well, there's nothing.
Listen. The front door. They're coming.
Good Lord, those kids sound like 50 men with boots on.
No, not men. Oh, please, God, don't let them find us. Don't let them, please, God.
I don't understand this. Who's there?
Don't shout, they'll hear.
Who's down there? I demand that you answer me.
Oh, they're coming. The whole house is shaking.
Who's there?
Hush, please be quiet. They might go away. Henry.
Mom? Dad? Are you in the attic?
Henry, listen.
That's Mink. It's Mink. We've got to save her.
Henry, don't you understand? She's leading them.
What?
She's leading them. She's on their side, Henry. Oh, please, God, forgive them.
The children on their side?
She told us, but we wouldn't believe her. Shh, listen. They're coming up. Oh, God.
Mom? Dad? We know you're in there. I guess you better melt the lock drill.
Henry? Henry, the lock. It's melting. The door. Oh, dear God!
Mom, Dad? Oh, I see you now. Peekaboo!
Oh. Whoa!
You have just heard X-1, presented by the National Broadcasting Company in cooperation with Street and Smith, publishers of astounding science fiction. Tonight, by transcription, X-1 has brought you 0 Hour by Ray Bradbury, as adapted for radio by George Lefferts. Featured in the cast were Nina Reeder, David Pfeffer, Peggy Lubin, Les Damon, Raleigh Bester, Bob Hastings, and John Larkin. X-1 was directed by Daniel Sutter and is an NBC Radio Network production.
There's always a little commercial at the end.
Need that for context.
Yeah.
And now, next week, The Vital Factor by Nelson Bond. The story of a man who sought to rule the universe and then discovered that this formula for gaining that power was minus one precious ingredient. You'll hear it on X-1.
I want to hear it now.
That's exactly how I felt.
It's Groomed for Your Interests, weekday, NBC Radio.
Oh, okay, that's it. And then the chimes.
Of course, NBC. So you see, this was 1958.
I believe it was 1958, if I have this one correct.
Well, it definitely puts it in that that era of Twilight Zone and shows of that nature of the 50s. One Step Beyond, Thriller, Outer Limits, etc.
Yeah,
very effective. I mean, it's surprising that more of Ray Bradbury's works weren't adapted for television.
It's interesting because there was that show in the 80s called Ray Bradbury Theater.
True, you're right.
And while I was doing my research and looking for visuals I could put on the video and all that, I did run across photos from and so if you search Ray Bradbury and 0 Hour and images, you will find photos from their episode. And the kids, if you can think of like a Honeycombs commercial or like a Capri Sun commercial from the 80s, that's what these kids look like. The girl's wearing like the little bike messenger hat with the flipped up brim. Mm-hmm. The boys are all wearing like parachute pants. The girls all have like side ponytails. It's like the most 80s sickening dreck you've ever seen in your life. I was reading a blog where the guy was reviewing all the episodes, and he was like, I think this might be the best episode. I'm like, but it's hideous. It looks awful.
But in all fairness, though, John, I mean, again, for the 50s and 60s television and the radio, look at the pictures of the kids there as well. I mean, it definitely, that's what brought it to mind as far as being a Twilight Zone type of vibe at the beginning of the presentation. It's like, wow, I mean, listen to these kids. That's I could picture them in my mind immediately. Look at any of those old episodes, you're going to see it there.
And that's a good point because, the kids are not story perfect, picture perfect. Mink is, she's a little psycho, that Mink.
Yeah.
A little bit of a psychopath. She turned her parents over to the invaders. Another thing that I kept running across, it's very Ray Bradbury, which is the kids are like, once the aliens take over and put us in charge, we can read as many comic books and watch as much television as we want. And as you know from Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, he thought the prevalence of comic books and TV were killing literature and killing people's brains. It's very much a Bradbury thing.
Well, again, and a good fit for the Zone, because we had, of course, Jerome Bixby's story adapted to Twilight Zone. It's a Good Life. Again, super indulged child who has the power to, send him to the cornfield. So what's he going to do? He's going to do what he wants.
Played by Ron Howard.
Excuse me. No, Bill Mummy.
Bill Mummy. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Good correction, Mr. Townsel. I appreciate that.
But all excellent, including tonight's all excellent depictions of what kids that age, despite how they're being brought up, and again, look at some of the negligence here of the parenting even back then.
Good.
Which might have led to a little bit of the kids saying, "Hey, what the heck? When you have what you want, we just turn into mom and dad."
Yeah. There's that moment where it's like, kids, why do we have them? Damn.
Good question, huh?
Here's the thing, like the parents had plans to go to the theater that night. I didn't hear anything about a babysitter.
Nope. So go to your room. We'll tie you up, and that way you can't get out and get in trouble.
Just send her up there with the radio and let her listen to shows like this and give her ideas. Look, technical issues notwithstanding, there's nothing you could have done, nothing I could have done to protect our various moments where the technical difficulties came in. However, what a lovely night. Thank you so much for joining me, Mr. Townsel.
Oh, as always, John, thank you for having me as your stalwart co-host. I mean, every week it's a new education and reminiscence rolled into one. I mean, it brings to mind things I've enjoyed my entire life as far as TV, and now I'm getting some excellent radio education as well. I love it. Thank you.
Oh, really, it's my favorite thing to do right now. And whenever anybody gives you advice, they're usually telling you something that I most of my life I didn't feel like I could apply. And it's usually like, what do you like? What's special to you? What are you not necessarily an expert in, but an aficionado, someone who's very much a fan and feels affection for something. And it's just been great for me to have old time radio, because I never considered myself a super fan or an expert or anything. I still don't, but I know a few things. I've picked up a few things along the way, and I love to pass those on to my friends and to our listeners and our viewers.
Sure. Well, a little knowledge, combined with some with emotional impact, always makes for great entertainment and something that's going to stay with you. And we're just getting started. We're just getting started.
Just getting started. I mean, we're not even at double digits in how many of these episodes we've done, and we certainly hope you'll come back. If you see any of our shows on YouTube or hear any of the podcasts, we certainly hope you'll stick with us. If you can show up live, oh man, what a huge bonus for all of us. But we love bringing these shows to you. Speaking of loving to bring things to you, I love that I get to tell you about joetownsel.com. A website where you can go and visit our friend Joe, see what he's up to lately, and also get connected with the things he's written, the other shows that he's done. He is he's an artist, folks. You know what? I'd go so far as to say he's an artiste.
Well, I appreciate that, sir. And of course, I encourage everybody, if they have any means at all, to go see John and Murder on the Orient Express. John will tell you where that's playing and so forth. And I would dearly love to see it myself, but if not this presentation or performance, another one. But I know from seeing other things he's done that he is not just an actor. I'm an artiste, and John is an actor.
Thank you so much, sir. And honestly, Murder on the Orient Express, what else could explain this hair? My hair is parted down the middle. I've got so much greasy kid stuff in it. It's created these bizarre ringlets. Joe actually watched me take my makeup off before the show. As we were getting ready, I was like so rushed, and I was like, oh my God, I've got like full cabaret makeup on. So
well, I suggested that if we do a Flash Gordon episode on Haunted Radio while John is still in Murder on the Orient Express, has his makeup on, leave it on for that show, because a better Ming the Merciless you will not encounter, my friends.
We may have to do that. By the way, Mr. Townsel, speaking of Flash Gordon, we're probably due to have our next chapter of Flash. I'll see if I can find a good recording of it. I hate to put you on the spot while we're recording, but is there anything going on with Buck Rogers that maybe we can do here on the show?
Well, all I can tell you at this time is that there is something we can talk about very soon.
Okay, good.
And it's a project that is in its post-production. It's an ongoing project, and it's something that's in the first parts of which are in post-production. Okay. So please, I appreciate you mentioning it, and everyone, stay tuned, as they say. We'll have something to tell you more about that in the very near future.
Buck Rogers, of course, a huge cornerstone of science fiction. We even talked about it earlier tonight. Yes. Big cornerstone. And I just love to throw out this little factoid. Buck Rogers came before Flash Gordon. Flash Gordon was considered the ripoff of Buck Rogers, which I love them both. Just like Star Wars, Star Trek. I love them both. There's no battle here for me. Mr. Townsel, I think we're good for the week. You feeling good?
I'm feeling great. Again, technical issues aside, I'm glad it spared me on our second segment at least.
Yeah.
And again, I thank you, John, for coming with two great programs. Last week was top-notch horror. This week, top-notch science fiction. What more can you ask for?
Excellent. I have no idea what next week's shows are going to be. If you want to hit me up and give me any suggestions, the Starbase 80 Facebook page is open to you, as is the Weber Internet Thingy page. And then on YouTube, there is Weber Internet Thingy, which is our specific channel. So you can find old episodes of Haunted Radio from Space. You can find old episodes of
Absolutely
Picarder, which we did with some buddies. You can find old episodes of Starbase 80. So we would love to see you, hear you, and we certainly hope you'll join me and Joe next Sunday. That will be at 10 p.m. on the East Coast, 7 p.m. here on the Best Coast. I'm teasing. I love the East Coast. But all right, Mr. Townsel.
Mr. Weber.
I am guessing that this is... Sir, thank you as always for being my first officer on this crazy journey.
The honor is mine. Thank you.
Goodbye, my friend. And goodbye, you at home. Good night.